Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kira and today I am bringing you a very special monthly completed pages video. April marks 18 months since I started my colouring journey and I thought it might be fun to commemorate the occasion by comparing my March completed pages to the very first pages I ever coloured all those months ago. But before we dive into that, let's have a quick peek at how my colouring journal is currently looking. First off, I wanted to share a little update. I've officially reached the point where I own too many colouring books for them to all be visible in my completed pages chart. And unfortunately, the basic version of Notion only allows for one chart at a time. I know, it's really stupid. I did consider upgrading to the paid subscription, but honestly, paying $10 a month just to have some extra charts probably isn't the most practical use of my money, especially when that could go towards, more colouring supplies. So instead, I've decided to stick with tracking everything in the table view and have converted the coloured pages property into a progress bar. So I still have something moderately aesthetic to look at. If you've purchased this Notion template from my Ko-fi store in the past, you can do this exact same thing if you've also run into the same issue. Or if you do have a Notion subscription, you could always create multiple charts and sort of break your books down into different chart categories. I also recently updated my table to include a total count of all the pages I've coloured since, the beginning of my adult colouring journey. So 135 pages and 18 months. Not too shabby if I do say so myself. Okay, now we can have a look-see at my 2025 tracker tab. So far for 2025, I've coloured 20 pages in total. I have completed pages in 17 books, and I have ticked off 7 pages from my 25 pages to colour in 2025 challenge. Okay, heading into my March tab now, you'll see that I completed 6 pages in total in March. Only 3 were from my colouring plans list. We know how bad I am at sticking to my plans list. I coloured at least a little bit of something in 9 different books. I have 3 whips on the go at the moment, and I coloured 3 pages from my 25 pages to colour in 2025 challenge, so very much on track for that. As per usual, if you'd like a very basic version of this Notion template to customize and make your own, I always have a link to my Ko-fi store in the description below. So here's how this video is going to work. I'll show you one of my completed pages from March, and then I'll show you one of the first pages I ever coloured, and we can see how much my colouring has progressed in 18 months. I also wanted to change how I discuss my monthly completed pages because a lot of you commented how tough I was on myself last month, and I totally agree. I think I was just not in the best headspace, and I never want to encourage you to think that way about your own work. So instead of being a negative Nancy, I want to change my language and instead talk about what I like about each page and what I think I could improve on and work on in the future. The first 2 pages that I completed in March were outstanding whips from my oil pastels tutorial that I did a couple of months ago. So this is the first one here. It is from Maria Troll's Universe by Maria Troll. And I used the oil pastels in that video to do the sky, clouds and water here. And then what I did for the bottom half was actually do a base of gouache to really lighten the line work, almost make it invisible, and then colored over the top of that with my Prismacolors. What I really loved about lightening the existing line work on the page was that I could kind of have the freedom to color it however I want. I'll try to zoom in as close as possible here, but as you can see, for these leaf bush type elements, there was actually a whole bunch of lines that I was not sure how to tackle, and so I just colored over top of them. I will say that it was a little bit tricky to get a smooth blend with my Prismacolors because doing a base layer of gouache really does create a heavy texture on the page. I think in the future, if I ever did this technique again, I would try maybe sanding down the gouache a little bit just to smooth out the texture slightly. But some of the things I really like about this page is the limited color palette. I think the colors came together really beautifully and harmoniously. I also like the realistic sort of painterly effect that I got by using the oil pastels as well as doing that gouache base. And I also like how the two gradients on the page really complement each other. So you have the gradient in the sky here, and then you also have the gradient of the hills. If I do this gouache base technique again, I want to do it on a page where there aren't as many large spaces to color, because as I said, it was hard to get a smooth blend with my Prismacolors after the fact, and that was particularly difficult on the hills section. Next time, I also don't think I would add these acrylic dots to the hills. That was me trying to cover up the imperfections of the blending that I did with my pencils, and I think it did look better before I did that, so yeah. Hindsight really is 2020. With all that being said, let's look at the first page I ever colored in Rooms of Wonder. Pretty much all of the earlier pages that I'll be showing you today are from Rooms of Wonder because that was my first adult coloring book. And the first page I colored was actually the cover of the book, the inside of the cover, this key page here. You can really tell how much my coloring has improved. Although this is also a limited color palette, you can tell that I've gotten a lot better at creating more visually interesting pages. There is also not much contrast on the page. And even though I don't define myself as a realistic colorist, if you compare the page I showed you previously to this one, yeah, my coloring has definitely gotten a lot more realistic. Moving on to my second completed page in March. It is this page here from Shooting Star by Maria Troll. Yet again, a part of that oil pastels video. In that video, I had no idea how I was going to tackle coloring the bottom half of the illustration. And then I think a couple of you gave me this idea in the comments where I have the northern lights reflecting onto the woman and the clouds, and I absolutely loved that idea. And so here's my interpretation of that. I also somehow managed to get some acrylic marker in the corner here. I'm seriously the clumsiest human on earth. I don't know how that happened, but anyway. And what I really love about this page is the juxtaposition of the bright Northern Lights colors against the grayscale of the bottom half. This is something I've never done before, and it was just really fun to experiment with. I also really liked outlining the clouds with dots rather than just outlining them completely. I feel like it gives a softer, fluffier appearance. And I'm also really happy with the shading of the skin and hair. As we know, I'm very much still a novice when it comes to coloring people, so I'm pretty proud with how I managed to handle that. The improvements I would like to make in the future pretty much all revolve around the sky background. First off, I think I did way too many white dots. It feels a little bit, I don't know, of an overkill. And I'm also not a fan of how I blended out the Northern Lights oil pastels. I think in the future I would need to blend them out one by one rather than doing sort of a layering approach or putting all the oil pastel on the page and then blending them together from there. The colors just muddied a little bit too much together. So in the future, if I do this again with oil pastels, that's something I would try. But I just don't know if oil pastels is the best medium for Northern Lights. So I really want to try doing Northern Lights again in the future, but with a different medium. And now we are going to look at the opposite page to the key page I showed you before in Rooms of Wonder, which is, I guess it's the title page. I did think when I initially started coloring that I would color books from front to back, but that quickly ended shortly after this. I also thought when I got into adult coloring that I was only going to use alcohol markers and then shade over the top with pencils. And so I did a base of clear gesso on here, and it just it really altered the texture of the page and it became really rough. And so my alcohol markers got destroyed and it was really hard to create a smooth blend with my pencils over the top. I think one of the two things I can notice that I've improved on since coloring this page is that I'm a lot better at shading now. I know where shading should go, and here you can really tell I had no clue how to shade. And something else that's sticking out to me is that I'm really able to choose the right colors to blend in with the alcohol marker basing. I think my tones of green pencil are just really off in comparison to the alcohol marker base that I've done. My next completed page from March was from Enchanted Earth by Melpomene Chetsopanagiotou, and this page was from my 2025 challenge, and it was for the prompt A Page Set in Autumn. And since we went into the autumn season here in Australia in March, I thought this page was perfect to colour. This page was done using a base of alcohol markers. The background was with soft pastels. And something I really like about this page is that instead of using a white acrylic marker for the highlights, I actually used a really soft, creamy yellow. And I think that really helped tie in the yellow background of the page and makes it all feel a lot more cohesive as a result. I did contemplate adding something extra to the background, like perhaps some paint splatters or something like that, but I'm glad that I restrained myself and left it quite plain because I think it really draws the eye to the foreground of the image. I added some of my own extra line work at the bottom here. I extended the water straight to the edge of the page, and I also extended this, I don't know, I feel like it's some sort of dirty moss stuff down at the bottom. I just felt like the illustration ended too soon on the page, so bringing it down just, I don't know, it felt like the right decision. Two things I would improve on in the future. I think I could have added a little bit more highlights in regards to my pencil shading for mainly this dirt foliage section in the middle here. I just don't think there's enough contrast between the shadows and the highlights, so everything gets a little bit lost. And something else that I think could improve this page is maybe sort of varying the color of the mushroom stalks a little bit. It all looks a little bit samey. Now heading back to Rooms of Wonder. I'm just going to show you both of these pages at the same time because we pretty much got the same thing going on here. Yet again, I did a base of gesso and then did alcohol markers on top. And as you can see, there's really been a lot of transfer between the pages here, and also the alcohol marker has faded quite a bit as well. For the apples here, I remember trying to use some colored pencil for shading, but it just wasn't working for me. So pretty much both of these pages are just shaded and colored with alcohol markers, which is really interesting that I started coloring that way because that's something that I pretty much don't do ever now. I also never did backgrounds at the beginning of my adult coloring journey, which I think a lot of us can relate to. I think it took me 6 months to actually build up the courage and do a full-on background for a coloring page. However, I know if I were to tackle these pages now, I would be creating so much more contrast and depth. There's just, I don't know, they're looking a little bit flat to me. Then I colored my very first Kirby Roseanne's page. I have a video on the channel documenting the whole process if you want to see it. This was probably the most intimidating book in my collection, and as everyone told me, it's so much easier once you get coloring. You really do get a lot of help from Kirby in regards to the shading and highlights. I know Kirby is a favorite among many colorists in the community. I don't think he's gonna be my personal favorite just because I prefer more cutesy, quirky, and whimsical pages. But I'm definitely going to color more of his pages in the future now that I've broken through that intimidation phase. 3 things I love about this page. Definitely my favorite element is the frothy waves. I love how they came together. I also just love the chaos of the Neo Color 2 background. It really complements the chaos that's happening within the illustration context. And I also love the color combos that I used for the waves and the whale tail. But coming off of that, something I would like to improve on is the color combos that I used for the doodly elements. Those color combos look quite plain in comparison to the color combos that I used for the tail and the waves, but maybe that provides a nice contrast on the page. I don't know, now I feel like I'm just talking in circles. Something else to improve on, I'm really upset that the white acrylic marker turned purple over the pink elements on the page. That's something that always happens, and I just need to remember to keep in mind if I know that I'm going to use white acrylic marker on purple pink pencil work. And I spoke about this in the video, but the next Kirby page that I work on, I really want to use a not limited color palette. I want to go crazy with my colors and see if that enhances the coloring experience and the final result of a Kirby page for me. We are then going to compare that Kirby page to these two pages here from Rooms of Wonder, the nameplate page, and what do you call this? The copyright page, I think? Ironically, I kind of used similar colors here that I used on that Kirby page, but just, yeah, a lot more simply. I actually remember I based these two pages with water-based markers, which is hilarious because now I'm absolutely scared of that medium, but I used it on two of my very first coloring pages. And I feel like I'm just going to constantly repeat myself when comparing my work now to my very first coloring work. I'm just craving more contrast on these pages. It's not straight coloring, but it almost looks like that because I just haven't used pencils that are dark enough over top of the based elements. This is also when I discovered glitter gel pens in adult coloring, and so this nameplate page has so much glitter gel pen on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to capture it on camera, but she's very fun and sparkly, and I do really like that element. We then have another very autumnal page. This is from How to Draw Inky Wonderlands by Johanna Basford. This page was selected for my 2025 challenge as well. It was chosen for the prompt a page with a light source. So obviously we've got a little lantern down here, so that's why it works for the prompt. This book is all about adding your own elements, but honestly, I didn't add too much to this page. The main thing is the framed border, and I also just extended the base of the tree as well. Elements of this page that I really enjoy are the bushy texture behind the leaves here. I did this with my Derwent Inktense, and I think it just really helps to create that leafy tree effect. And it's funny that I showed you that Rooms of Wonder page before because I also used a lot of glitter gel pen on this page too. You can only notice it when it hits the light, but I've done a whole bunch of gold glitter gel pen dots for the tree background here. It's just a fun little touch like all glitter gel pen details are. I also really love that I didn't go with a standard sort of green leaf color palette. I love these fun, warm colors that I've chosen. And I'm also happy that I added a very subtle vignette within the frame here. It was funny, I showed my partner the page without the vignette and I was like, oh, I'm thinking of doing a vignette. What do you think? Do you think it'll look good? And he was like, nah, I think it looks great as it is. And yeah, I completely ignored him, did the vignette and showed it to him again. And he was like, oh yeah, it looks much better now. Always trust your gut and intuition, people. Most of the time it won't lead you astray. Something I think that could improve this page in the future, the line work of the leaves is just looking a little bit strong in comparison to the Derwent Inktense background. So I think maybe if I'd softened the line work by adding some acrylic marker over the top, maybe might just make it look a little bit more cohesive. Also, considering that I chose this for the prompt, a page with a light source, I also think I could have enhanced the lighting effect a little bit more. I could have extended the light within the lantern to perhaps the base of the tree. And then one major faux pas that I made, I don't know why I did this. So because the page was a tiny bit buckled after doing so much watercolor pencil work, I ironed it afterwards and I didn't put any baking paper down. I literally full on just straight ironed the page, and the glitter gel pen at the bottom down here on the framed border, it completely smudged everywhere. So I had to fix that and I've managed to neaten it up quite a bit, but yeah, my iron is definitely very sparkly now. Oh, don't make the same mistake I did, people. I always put baking paper between my pages and my iron now. And now heading back to Rooms of Wonder. This was my first ever page that I did with no basing and just colored pencil. And I remember thinking when I was coloring this page how long it was taking me. I definitely always base my pages now because it really just quickens the coloring process. I do remember that I found a page on Pinterest to help me color this page. I would definitely add something to the background of this page now. Perhaps some shelving, even just some like circles behind the trinkets themselves. But I do really like the color palette that I've chosen on this page. I don't think my color choices have changed much in the last 18 months. I've always been a fan of vibrant, colorful pages, and it started from the get-go. What would be an interesting idea is if I colored the page next to it now, and it'd be so fascinating to see the difference side by side. The final page that I colored in March was from Forest and Nature by Rita Prince. And if you saw my recent video on the channel, you would be familiar with this page. And this was also another page that I chose for my 2025 challenge and was for the prompt, a space themed page. This is the best page I could choose for that prompt in a forest and nature book. And yet again, some lovely subscribers suggested to me to really up the space theme of this page was to add a galaxy sky to the back wall of the suitcase. And obviously I loved the idea, ran with it, and also added a bit of a galaxy behind the illustration as well. This galaxy effect was done with my Derwent Inktense pencils, and I just absolutely love how it came together. I'll definitely be doing this again in the future. My concept for this page was that this little world here within this suitcase is flying through outer space on this meteor rock thing. Let me know if I managed to pull that off. And in addition to loving the Derwent Inktense background, I also really love the shading of the trees. This is what I'm talking about when I just love a really strong contrast and depth in my coloring pages now, and you can really tell the difference from my first coloring pages to this one here. What I think I could improve on for this page, there's something about the animals and the suitcase itself where the color combos that I've chosen just feel a little bit plain and, I don't know, not super visually interesting. Maybe for the animals, I could have, played around a bit with some more oranges and browns together. The suitcase, maybe I could have done more of a purple and pink combination. I'm not unhappy with what I've done, just something I could think about in the future. And upstairs has just decided to start vacuuming. Don't worry people, I'm not going to have that issue in my new home. Which, this is the last video in this house. How crazy is that? And then the final page we are going to compare to from the beginning of my adult coloring journey is not from Rooms of Wonder, but Small Victories. As many of you know, Small Victories is what got me addicted to adult coloring. I think it's just the size of the illustrations just makes you want to keep coloring more and more. And this here was one of the very first pages that I colored in this book. And already on this page here, I can see a massive improvement from some of the first pages that I did in Rooms of Wonder. The contrast is a tad better, but also where I'm shading is a lot better as well. It's a lot more accurate, makes more sense. I really like the opposing color palettes that I've chosen here. That's something I've done a lot in Small Victories since this page. I really don't use glitter gel pens much anymore because it's always was something that I used when I had no idea how to color a tiny element on the page, whereas now I have a better understanding of how to tackle those super tiny intricate details. I haven't colored in Small Victories for a while actually. I think I need to get back into coloring a page in this book. I really love having coloring books where there's pages from the very beginning of my coloring journey and also more recent ones because it's just, I don't know, it's really fun to see my progress within one coloring book. It feels a little weird ranking my March completed pages after looking at my very early coloring work, but I'm gonna do it anyway. This month was especially tough to rank because I feel like a lot of the pages that I did were I don't know, they were very different to one another. So yeah, just know that there isn't much of a difference between each placement. In 6th place, I'm going to put the Northern Lights page that I did just because, you know, my oil pastel work wasn't the finest. In 5th place is then going to be the page from Maria Troll's Universe. In 4th place is going to be the tree page from How to Draw Inky Wonderlands. 3rd place is going to be the page from Forest and Nature by Rada Prince. Oh, and 1st and 2nd, every day I feel like I vacillate between which one was my favorite from the month. But as of right now, Enchanted Earth is going to be in 2nd place, and in 1st place is going to be the Kirby Roseanne's page. I think it's just special to me because it's my first ever page from him that I've ever coloured. As for my colouring plans for April, I have my 3 whips that I currently have on the go on that list, as well as 2 pages from my 2025 challenge, and that's all I'm going to stick to for now. Whilst I love pulling colouring prompts from my jar and choosing pages to add to my monthly plans list, I've just found that I often don't end up colouring those pages. My colouring mood just shifts so much throughout the month, and I also come up with video ideas that require me to colour completely different pages. So yes, it's taken me 18 months to realise that I just need to have a short plans list of 4 to 5 pages for each month, and then allow myself the freedom to colour whatever else I want for the rest of the month. So I'll quickly show you the whips that I currently have on the go. The first 2 are from my recent video, so if you saw that video, these would be familiar to you. I have this hot air balloon page from My Tiny Forest by Nina Steiner. This one, I won't be surprised if I don't colour in April, just because, I don't know, it's not really appealing to me at the moment. And then the other whip that I have from that video is actually one that I'm working on right now, so I'm really loving how this one is turning out so far. However, I am definitely struggling with trying to realistically colour the metal portion of this hand mirror here. I'm just really struggling to make it look, I guess, kind of shiny and metallic. And then the last whip I have at the moment is one you've seen for a couple of months now. It's from World of Flowers by Johanna Basford. And I don't know, when I look at this page, I'm just not inspired to colour it. I have done a little bit of basing and a teensy bit of shading since you last saw this page, but I don't know, I'm just not feeling inspired. But I also just want to get it over and done with so I can just tick it off my list. So maybe I'll get to this in April. And then the 2 pages that I'm considering colouring in April from my 25 pages to colour in 2025 challenge. The first is this teddy bear page here from Shooting Star by Maria Troll. This was chosen for the prompt, a page that reminds you of your childhood. And I chose this page because I think I just need an easy page. I've done a lot of large, intricate pages recently, and I think I just need to have a little bit of a palette cleanser. And this one just feels nice and simple, so that's why that one's on the list for April. And then I also think I want to colour this page here from Polar Bear's Adventure Cruise by Yuki Shiratori. This page was chosen for the prompt, a page without a background, and I think I chose this page because it's kind of giving me Easter vibes. I know it's not really an Easter page, but I don't know, it has a spring Easter feeling to it. There's some eggs on the page as well that I think I could colour as little Easter eggs. That might be fun. But what is really stumping me with this page is the background. And I guess that's what makes this prompt challenging, is that this page doesn't have a background. I mean, my first initial instinct is to colour some sort of wooden table behind it, but that just seems so boring and tedious. So I'm gonna throw it to you guys to see if you have any suggestions for me. You always give me such great ideas, so what do you think I should do for the background for this page? At the moment, I'm thinking of doing some sort of just faded out color behind each element, but if you have any better ideas, definitely leave it in the comments below for me. I'm really hoping I'll get a few Easter pages within the mix, but as many of you know, I have a very jam-packed schedule in April, so we'll see how we go. If you got to this part of the video, leave a, what emoji do I want you to leave? Leave a teddy bear emoji, or just leave any sort of fun emoji if you can't find a teddy bear emoji. Until next time, happy coloring friends. Have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.